Jax West here again. We started a video and my audio sucked. So I'm trying to go again to see if this is any better. Or is it just bad reception on my end? So I apologize for that. I'm talking right now, Adrian. Do you hear me? Do you hear me now? Hello, Misty and Debbie and Roxanne. So somebody let me know if you hear me and if there's any issues with this one. And sorry for people who were on the first one that asked questions that I didn't get to because I switched over to a new video since we were having audio problems with the last one. So, oops, I needed to scroll. Okay, people are telling me, yes, they can hear me and it's better. Yay, knock on wood. Okay, so let me ask the question that I saw a few people ask and I wasn't able to answer. Since I had said in the first one that I haven't spoken to Stephen in a year. So let me get that out right now. So the last time I saw Stephen was on Father's Day last year, so June of last year. I have not heard from him. I know happened is, here's the thing that goes on in the Avery case. We don't normally talk about this on Stephen Avery Project. The Avery Project is kept to be just about the case and not about any of the bullshit. There's also the group that's called MAM Gossip. So in MAM, that's when I go into it's gossip. So I talk about some of the drama that goes on behind the scenes. So there's people who think that they are Stephen's number one fan and get very competitive. And so there is somebody who to Stephen and told Stephen that I was talking shit about his mother. Set him to where he's not talking to me any longer. Oh my God, people say I'm cutting out again. I don't know what to tell you guys on why it's cut so bad. Why is that doing that? I just don't know. Do y'all want me to continue? Do you hear enough for me to continue? Or is it horrible to try and listen to? And it is saying it's fine now. Gary, have the police started to investigate Ryan Hilgas after KZ's brief? No, nothing to Ryan Hilgas. And, you know that every time you need to look at the pieces to the victim first and foremost. And they did next to Ryan Hilgas. Still don't. It was right away, let's go after Stephen. They saw opportunity and they seized it. Now, instead of findings, they had to make evidence fit their narrative. Therefore, Ryan Hilgas is not even a consideration. It's just Stephen. That's all they care about because Stephen had his lawsuit and they don't want to pay that out. Okay, it comes and goes. Yes, Kathleen is still Stephen's lawyer. She has said she will remain. She gets him out. So the horrible thing is that it takes years because that is so bad. It takes so long to get somebody out. So, and so she's been on the case for what? 3 years? Is it 3 years? 4 years? And I think she says it typically takes 15 years for her to get out the wrongfully convicted. So, but Kathleen remains on the case, will be there and freeze him. So, hello. Let me see if I can scroll up. Yeah, Randy Lynn says, breaking up, I'm gonna exit. Yeah, I'm sorry that some of this is shitty. I'm scrolling back to see if there's any questions. Okay. Stephanie says, one address to send him an encouragement. We do on Stephen Avery Project. We have the pinned post called announcements, is what Facebook lists up. And we have that pinned up there. So go to the, so it would be the very first post in the timeline of Stephen Avery Project, a picture with the address on how to mail Stephen Avery. I just want people to know that Stephen doesn't write very many people back. So don't be offended if you don't him, and don't write to him just because you want a letter from him or you want his autograph, whatever that is. Be thinking about this guy has been in prison all these, and just talk to him about yourself and tell him about yourself. And you can send him pictures too if you would like. You pictures of like your home, and of course Stephen loves cars. So I highly recommend sending him a letter. Just don't expect one back. Stephen does like to write, and then also there have been people that try to take the letters they get from Stephen and sell them and put it out into the press. So, yeah. I'm trying to scroll back to see. Haley believes he's innocent. I hope everybody here believes he's innocent. The Stephen Avery Project believes in Stephen's innocence 100%. How is Stephen's health? I haven't heard anything, so I'm going to assume this the same. But just like I always answer on his parents when they ask about their health, getting older every day. Every day that passes is another day they get older. So, need to get him released so he can go home and spend time with his mom. Nikki is asking about how is he holding up with the pandemic. There's lots of problems in their prisons over in the UK. Yeah, here in the States, so many prisons are having problems, and then you have the prisons are covering up the cases they have or the deaths they have. So everybody's at risk. So here's hoping Stephen is okay and he's not being exposed to anything. Yeah, John, this is his second time in for something he didn't do. Laura says they were both screwed over. Absolutely. Yeah. Brendan was forced into a profession. And I know that's hard for people to understand, where they're like, I would never say I did something I didn't do. You don't understand that the police officers have and what they do get you to say what they want you to say. And Brendan was 16 and he was challenged, but you don't have to be young and mentally challenged to fall for it. One of my other cases, Marnie, she is one of the most intelligent people I've ever met. She confessed to a murder she didn't commit. So you don't know until you're in that situation. June says, we are rooting for Stephen. I'd like to see Barbara's family put away. So I'm going to guess, June, you think that it is Scott and Bobby? I'm going to assume. Bianca says, I still believe Brendan Dassey's brother did it. Can't remember his name. That would be Bobby. And yes, I believe Bobby is there. Teresa. I I'm not going to theorize what he did because I believe there is no proof or evidence to what happened to Teresa Halbach. All we know is she. And so I believe whatever happened to her, Bobby and Scott are involved. Saying still bad connection. Yeah, I'm sorry about that. Pam says, who do you think murdered her? And I beat you to it. I believe Bobby and Scott. Hello, Crystal in Michigan and Kelly in Southwest Florida. How are his parents? They're old. So, health declines every day. So, Stephen needs to be freed and go home. Hello, Lionel in Ontario. June says, no question that Stephen is innocent. And Courtney says, Stephen is absolutely innocent. Haley says, whole life has been taken away from him. Yeah, he's lost everything. Remember, the first time he was married and had children, he had newborn twins. So he didn't get to raise his children. And then he gets didn't get to have contact with his growing up. He gets out, has a girlfriend, and then that gets taken away from him again. It really is a travesty what happened to Stephen Avery. And as he says, poor people all the time. He's able to get a defense. A proper defense? Because there were so many things that were missed in that original trial that proved Stephen Avery's innocence. But also, is he going to get a fair trial anywhere in Manitowoc? I don't care if you take that. That blue line crossed that county. Kim says, how will the bones and blood evidence ever be explained away? What bones and blood evidence? There has been nothing found that points to Stephen that isn't tainted. They find bones in a burn pit, but they're not able to take pictures of them. That blood in her car in weird places that totally looks like a tip just went. And then wasn't there blood and fingerprints where in that vehicle? Nothing. They have nothing that proves Stephen guilty. His parents can go to see him, but it's hard, so they don't. They don't travel well. They don't walk well. So they don't get to see much. But Stephen calls regularly. When is the state's reply due? I want to say it was like April 27th. And somebody had posted that too, April 27th. But I don't know if it got a 30-day extension on top of that. But we don't, Debbie, it's hard to know with the virus and what's happening with everything. And, you know, what dates will stand and what will get pushed. Kelly says, such a shame. Sorry, it just scrolled and lost. I think you were saying something about his parents. And it is a shame. Amy says, are they doing anything to find the actual killer? Absolutely not. They don't care. They've never cared about the actual killer. They cared about putting Stephen Avery away. So his $1 million lawsuit, $36 million lawsuit would go away. So they don't care. They're perfectly happy with a killer being free. They're perfectly happy with there being no justice for Teresa Halbach. As long as Stephen goes away. Jennifer says, did the Innocence Project ever reviewed this case? Well, the Innocence Project drops Stephen like a hot potato when this came on. When it happened, everybody dropped him right away. Bam, we're done with him without even saying what happened to him the first time. These are the same corrupt people involved this time. Let's look at this. Nope, everybody's like, done, gone, bye. So Innocence Project isn't doing anything on Stephen's case, and he's got Kathleen Zellner. So for the Innocence Project. So Jessica says, how is Brendan? Brendan, his lawyers are trying to get his petition for claim granted to get him out. And that's basically all that's left for Brendan legally. And Kathleen Zellner to prove who the real killer is. So I feel horrible for Brendan because that poor kid is innocent and was manipulated and has lost his life. You know, it's sad. Shannon says, have the jurors or other judges ever said anything about screwing this? I know, of course, you've got the decider who has said things, and then there were allegedly a couple jurors who said stuff to the documentarians of Making a Murderer, but not really. We don't hear anything. But you have to know that 2 of the jurors on Stephen's case were affiliated with Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. One person was married to a sheriff, and the other person is a father to a sheriff, and he worked in their community service department. So these are people absolutely who should not have been on Stephen's jury. They should not even allowed to be in the jury. And I spoke to Buting on this personally and asked him why, because they're able to strike X amount of people, why they let these people who worked at the Manitowoc County Sheriff be on Stephen's jury. And they said there were even worse people in that pool. They didn't really have true jurors to through. So the act against Stephen, the best he could have hoped for in that trial was a mistrial. The Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department people, no way we're going to ever vote not guilty. So they had all their bases covered. No way Stephen was going to be a free man. Shannon says, what is wrong with Wisconsin? Well, let me say it's not all of Wisconsin. This is Manitowoc County, Emmett County. There's many lovely places in Wisconsin that do not have this corruption going on. So there's plenty of lovely people in Manitowoc as well. It's just this group of people. Shannon says there was no blood for what the alleged crime was. Why did the jurors not put that together? Like I said, that I would love to the bus driver, because there's no way the bus driver saw Teresa, at least on that Halloween. I would love to talk to some of those jurors and find out in that room. I can't scroll up to people's comments that keep disappearing. So sorry if I get to your question or comment, because this scrolls so fast and I can't get to them all. Trevor says, are there talks of a season 3 on Netflix? Oh, yes, of course they want to do a 3rd season, but it's not going to happen unless something really starts to happen in Stephen's case. So there's no filming being done, no date. Audrey is saying responses due at end of May. Thank you very much, Audrey. I knew something was the end of April, but see, I'm really bad with numbers, and I advocate for 4 different cases, and it's hard for me to remember who date, because all of the cases I advocate for all have a date within 2 weeks. So it's like crazy. And the other cases I advocate for is Melissa Kaluzinski, who is another client of Kathleen's. And then there's Kent Pellegrini, who is also with Kathleen, but he is actually represented by Kathleen's associate, Doug, is who handles Kent's case. But there's been times that all those are together, and I can't remember whose case is when. Louisa is from Scotland and following Stephen's story for the past few years and feels so sorry for him, having missed out on so much of his life. I'm still hopeful he gets freed soon. Me too. Sasha says it's all about money. And, that's Stephen. Poor people lose all the time. Sean, it says, anything on Kim Kardashian using her fame to help somehow? I haven't heard, but, those of you who are on Twitter, I don't tweet. Stephen Avery Project has a Twitter, but it's just connected to this Facebook, and anytime anything gets posted on this Facebook, it gets tweeted, but I don't go on Twitter. So if you are on Twitter, tweet at her and tell her to help Stephen and Brendan. I know she has talked about their cases, like when Making a Murderer first came out. And I think she has said something about Brendan before as well. So it can't hurt for people to reach out to her and, see if she could focus on the governor in Wisconsin. But I think she's pretty busy too in helping a bunch of different cases. So Heather says, make sure about loyalty. Yeah, it's so double-edged sword for me because I know they do so much good, but I'm really on how they ended up treating Stephen. And I did watch, I'm almost done with their Innocence Files Netflix. I think I've only got their last one episode left. I thought it was really good. Couple of episodes, and then I kind of lost interest, but I'm still watching it, but it isn't really grabbing me. Trevor, what is Bobby doing? He didn't slip yet. Bobby went in the down low. He's not publicly on social media anymore, keeping to himself. Go figure. Katya says, has Teresa's family said anything about after the second season of Making a Murderer? Surely they must know by now Stephen is not the killer. No, they don't pay any attention. I don't know if they even truly watch it. And they don't want to be in the press, and they just want to be left alone. So I think they just believe in the justice system, in law enforcement, and they're taking what's being told to them instead of truly looking at it. I keep seeing these comments going to somebody named Ryan. So do we have somebody on here named Ryan who is stuff about Stephen being guilty? I haven't seen it if it is. Finnish girl Heidi supports Stephen. Thank you so much, Heidi. June says, we were so hoping Kathleen Zellner would have found new evidence that would exonerate Stephen. Well, she has found so much stuff, but the court has to allow it. So that's the problem. I think Kathleen has a ton of stuff that proves Stephen's innocence, but the court just stopped. Okay, Christina is one of our longtime people, and she's saying bye, Ryan. So, okay, we got a bad person on here. Heather is asking me, what does this shirt say? I've worn it before. So, Langsshot Kennedy, sweat and DNA found on grassy knoll. This was a shirt that my partner Jeff made a long time ago when we first went to the first Straying Beauty event in Milwaukee. And so he had a shirt and wore it, and I stole it. Debbie says, do you think Brendan will get out pandemic? I hope so. Brendan's not the at-risk factor because he's young. Brendan's what, 30 now? I don't do math. And he doesn't have any health issues. So he's not a hack. But he's innocent, and he filed his petition for clemency. So here's hoping, because that poor kid. Mika, hello from Australia. Has Bobby ever visited Stephen or Brendan? I don't know if he's ever visited Stephen. He does visit Brendan. His mom makes him go on holidays. So that's the only time Bobby has visited Brendan, like for Christmas. Doesn't really have anything to do with him other than that. Courtney says, if Broken Hearts could set an innocent man free, then he would have been a free man many years ago. This whole situation is just wrenching. My heart shatters for Stephen and his parents. I pray all the time for him to get out so he can be with family, for Brendan as well. Amy says, how in the hell was that legal? How did they miss that? Ooh, I don't know what you're referring to, Amy. Sorry, because I don't know when that question was asked. How in the hell is that legal? I'm trying to remember what I said. Nikki says, it's so frustrating from distance. Never mind. Now it just went up so I couldn't see it. Oh, and so now here's Debbie saying the jury was definitely tainted. So that's what it's going to be about. Yeah, how is that legal? That you can have two people who are, one works for the Manitowoc Sheriff's Department, and his son is, if you Google image Stephen Avery, and it's the one where he's being escorted from court, and he's got a female sheriff on one side of him and then a male sheriff on the other. I believe he's wearing the orange jumpsuit. Well, that male is the guy, Carl Wardman. That's his son. And Carl Wardman, I believe that was the name, was on the jury. So you can also Google image, Carl Wardman, Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department, and you'll see him with his community service car that he would drive. How is he on Stephen's jury? Megan says they could have thrown them out and gotten new ones. I've been on a jury before. Yeah, me too. But what Buting said to me is the jury pool so full of bad potential jurors that they thought they used, they're only allowed so many strikes, be it 7 strikes or whatever it is. So they thought there were worse ones. I can't imagine how worse it could be than people that work for the Manitowoc County Sheriff's Department. They get jury from another county or state. Well, this was moved to a different county. It was Calumet County, not Manitowoc, right? Or no, the case was still in Manitowoc, but they brought in Kratz from Calumet County. Ugh. Just saying that name just grosses me out. Wanda says, and they're the ones who manipulated the others for guilty pleas before trial started. Trevor says, the lawyer bills will be huge even if they get out. Any talks with Zellner over fees? Well, Kathleen handles Stephen's case pro bono. So Stephen doesn't have any lawyer fees. So, and both Stephen and Brendan have gotten money from Netflix. When the first Make came out, they didn't get a lot of money. The second one, they got a better deal. So there is money that's waiting for them upon release. Then there is, depending on how they get out, to sue for their wrongful incarceration. So hopefully there will be money for them, because it's not like either one of them can go get a job. They've been in prison all this time. They can't go work anywhere. And before any guilter, says something like go work at McDonald's, their lives are always going to be at risk, because there's always going to be stupid people who think they're guilty and may want to harm them. So they can't get out of prison and just go into general society. They have to be protected, and they're going to need money to survive on. Christina says they had a chance to choose a mistrial when they chose to proceed after the juror was dismissed. Correct. There's a lot of ineffective assistance of counsel. You don't want to dog out Strang and Buting, but they made a lot of mistakes. And those mistakes alone should give Stephen a new trial. But it's another thing that I don't understand, because I am not basically a lawyer, nor do I basically pretend to be one. I don't understand that you have to go back to the same judge that already said you were guilty and get them to go, oh, my bad, I made a mistake. Let's give you a new trial. They have egos, and they don't want to say anything was wrong. So they're going to say no, and there's nothing you can do about it. So it should go to fresh eyes. It should go to a different judge. You shouldn't have, and then it takes all the time, because you have to fight so long on the state level and get them to say no, which then people go, see, they said no. No, they're going to say no. It's the same people, and it's the process you have to go through so you can get it out of there and go up higher. Meanwhile, years and years are being taken away from these people that are wrongfully imprisoned. Dominic says, I absolutely detest Andy Colburn. Oh, he'll probably sue you now for saying that. Yeah, what a scumbag. That guy was part of Steve's case when he's the one that got a call saying you have the wrong person in custody on the Penny Bernstein case. And let's just not do anything about that. Don't tell me you just worked at the jail. Because those of us who support Stephen and Brendan, we don't work in law. Yet, if we came across something, some evidence or whatever, we would go, hey, I saw this. So you work in correctional system and you're hearing you've got the wrong person in custody. It's this guy. And nothing. And don't tell me you weren't looking at Teresa Halbach's plate when you used your personal cell phone to call it in. You were looking at that car. And you were there when the magic key all of a sudden pops out of the air. There it is. Oh, you shook that thing so hard that all the stuff on that table remained all nice and neat. You trashed the trailer. Stuff is ripped apart and everywhere. But that one thing that you shook, that just happened to pop that thing off and a key went around the back, oh, that will make sure the books and change and everything is all nice and neat back on the table. Bullshit. Kiko says, what's up with Ken Kratz? I said earlier I'm not on Twitter. I know people told me a while ago that he and his daughter Sister Bride left Twitter. Didn't know if there was paradise. I don't know if he's back. I haven't heard anything on him. Everyone who travels to Wisconsin is at risk. Well, let me tell you, I've gone up to Manitowoc several times, and I've done lives of travels there. You'll see them mostly, and if you go into our closed group, MAM Gossip, and you go into the videos there, I went and visited everything. And I actually then got ticketed from Manitowoc for trespassing because I went into the deer camp, because I want to go from Cuss Road through the deer camp, and then I stood up on a berm at the deer camp so I could show view how close the salvage yard from the so I got a train ticket. Whatever. It's already scrolled away, but I did see somebody's comments saying, "Will I answer these questions that I wasn't able to see at another time?" Um, I need to start scheduling where we do more of these lives over here on Stephen Avery Project, especially since we're all closed in. So I'll get another day scheduled so we can do it again, and then I'll make a Facebook event for it. So you'll be able to remember when it is. And then in that event, you can post questions. And so then I'll print those up and also refer to those on another live for anything that's missed. I just have to figure out a day and time, because for another case that I advocate for, the Marnie Yang case, I am with an organization that is called WMP Justice Review, where it's a whole investigative team that works on some cases. And so the Marnie Yang case, her story's never been told. And so we've been lives on that Facebook page that I've shared on Stephen Avery Project on occasion, which I've already talked about. Then people bitch, what does this have to do with Stephen? It's another case. Watch it or don't. But I do lives on there Mondays and Fridays. And then I have a job that I'm doing Tuesdays and Thursdays. So maybe I can start doing Wednesdays here. Dominic says Zellner rocks. Yeah, you can watch more of Kathleen Zellner on, if you've never seen Dream Killer. That's the Ryan Ferguson story. So you can see her on that. And then the Melissa Kaluzinski case that I also advocate for Melissa, and that Melissa is the Stephen and Brendan case rolled into one person. Their 48 Hours covered Melissa's case twice. And so you can find those on 48 Hours, a CBS 48 Hours YouTube. And one is called Blaming Melissa. And then a couple years later, they did another one, and it's called The Fight for Melissa. And it's Erin Moriarty who does that case, and Kathleen are tight. And so Kathleen is featured in those as well. So if you're interested in this time of we're all at home, I recommend watching Dream Killer and also Blaming and Fight for Melissa. There's Heather talking about Orion, and I still have never seen Orion post. So I know you guys are talking some guilter, and the person's just lucking out, and I'm never seeing their post. Andrea says, sorry, just tuning in. Any new projects on Netflix with regards to Making a Murderer? No, not at this time. I'm sure they'll make another one if something happens with Stephen or Brendan's case. But right now, there's nothing to film on their case. I'm sure, they probably could do a whole nother series with stuff they've left on the cutting room floor. But that's not something that's been discussed. John says, free Stephen because of COVID-19. Yeah, I'm really worried about inmates. It's no joke. Melissa Kaluzinski emailed me today, and she told me that, because visiting, the visiting room is shut down. They're now using the visitors room to try and, they're trying to move inmates around, because you're trying to get them separated some, but you just can't. And then I just heard today because cases I advocate for, Marnie Yang and Melissa Kelly, they're both in the same prison. And so I just heard today at their prison that there's an inmate there with stage 3 cancer. And so they put that woman in with all the COVID patients. Sam is asking, how is Stephen? Is he well? He's the same. There, nothing bad to report on Stephen, but just always at risk because of what's going on. Miley says, I need that shirt. It says something on the back too, but I don't recall what it says. I don't remember what it says, but Jeff made it. Listen, my name is Nino Cross. I kind of know what is going on, and a lot of people do too. It's a secret, but I can help, I'm sure. It's bigger than anybody can imagine. Well, Nino, I always suggest, if you know stuff, reach out to Kathleen Zellner. Don't keep it to yourself. You can go to her website. On her website, there's a Stephen Avery station. There's a special number on her website just for Stephen, as well as there's also an email. So please reach out to Kathleen Zellner and tell her what you know. And if you're worried about repercussions, Nino, she can keep you, secret. Okay, so more people talking about this shirt. Yeah, it's a lovely shirt, isn't it? Katya says, how is the conditions for Stephen Brendan due to Corona? Are their parents and families allowed to visit? No, all prisons are on lockdown. No visitors. They can get legal visits, I believe. But no, family cannot go visit. And I don't know about Stephen and Brendan's prison, but Marnie and Melissa's prison, even for a period of time, cut off phone and email access for them. So they were on complete lockdown for a little while. But we know in that case is they just don't want the inmates to tell, hey, get down. Get down. Stop wrestling. Sorry, dog's wrestling in the background. Mickey. Knock off. So no families can visit. They cut off all contact with the outside world. The girls now have phone and email privileges again. I've been told mail has been slowed longer. So, Dominic is, how is Brendan doing in prison? Feel so sorry for him. Went into the morning interview thinking he would be in class in the afternoon, only to be absolutely blindsided by those two clowns. And that was before Kaczynski and O'Kelly got involved. Thank God his lawyers now seem so competent. Yeah. What was done to Brendan is the thing that upset me the most. Just him saying at the end, is this going to be done by, 2:30, whatever it was, because he had something to turn in. He had no clue what was being done to him. And then if you're able to see, and I know I posted it somewhere, they tried to scrub online his interrogation, where they were really, really trying to get Brendan to say that Teresa Halbach was shot. Because what had happened was, remember, I'm bad with numbers, so I don't remember dates well, but it was, he was interviewed on, I'm not even going to say dates because I can't remember for sure what they were, but they had interviewed Brendan on one date, and then they didn't the next one, but then the day after that, that's when you get the whole, what happened to her head? Punched her? Okay, but what else? Cut her hair? What else? Be honest. Cut her throat? Okay, Brendan, I'm just going to come out and say this. Who shot her in the head? Stephen. What had happened was, on that day they didn't interview him, that's when the magic bullet was found. Prior to that, there was nothing to say that Teresa Halbach had been shot, but now that you plant this bullet, with Teresa's chapstick rubbed on it to put her hand there. Now you have to have somebody say she was shot. So when they're saying to Brendan, what did you do to her head? He's not understanding where they're leading him to. Lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And so they finally have to say it. That blows it right there. You needed Brendan to say, we shot her in the head. But by you saying shot her in the head before he says it, you planted that now. And Brendan just goes with it. And then he thinks he's going back to class. No clue he has just said that he's a rapist and a killer. Other says, Case was in Calumet. June was from Manitowoc. Okay. Shannon says, Kratz did that on purpose and tainted the trial because he kept going into the media. They had no chance to not have a biased jury. Kratz's voice is so creepy. He is the worst. We're also at an hour here right now, but we had the little screw up. So I'll stay on for 15 more minutes. Kratz going to the media and the stuff that he was claiming that Brendan said they did to Teresa, I am convinced that's like his little sexting fantasy world. That was so wrong and absolutely tainted the jury pool and is disgusting. He's a disgusting human being. I don't even want to say he's a human being. Megan says, is there anything we can do to help with Stephen's case? No. Your support is appreciated. If you wanted to donate, here, let me pull up on my screen. Let me find on Kathleen's page. So you go to Kathleen's page, and then up top there is cases, highly publicized active cases, Stephen A. number 1. Oh, and that picture right there is the guy that is where can I post? There's nowhere on here where I can post something. Or do I have to scroll all the way to the bottom of all your stuff? Okay. So the guy whose dad was on the jury is in this picture on Kathleen's site. So when you go to Kathleen's website, so she's got recent update. So the last thing she has on here is the appellate brief that was filed on October 14th. And then underneath that is to support the Stephen Avery Legal Defense Fund, please donate here. And then a donate button. And then underneath that, it says to support Stephen Avery's commissary, please donate here. And then the link where you can directly donate to his commissary. Stephen Avery Project, do not advise you to put money anywhere else if you wanted to help monetarily in Stephen's case. So just follow this link to Kathleen Zellner's website, go to the Stephen Avery page, donate to the legal fund or to his commissary. That's the best you could do at this time. Let me try and scroll back up and try and get where I was before I scrolled down to post that link. Well, there's a lot of stuff here. Katya. Sorry, I move around a lot. I have I'm not asking for people to feel sorry for me. I have degenerative disc disease and restless leg syndrome that I didn't even know was a real thing. So my back's always in pain and my legs are in pain a lot. So I know it's annoying. So sorry. Cindy says, are they holding Stephen for gun charges? Excellent point, Cindy, that I always forget about. So Stephen, due to when he chased his cousin off the road, Sandra Morris, the gun at her, he's a felon and he's not allowed to have a gun. And so at his trailer there was that rifle or shotgun or whatever you call it that was hanging above his bed. So that, you're right, Cindy, and people forget about that he was charged with that gun for being a felon and having a gun in his possession. Now, doesn't make any sense because Stephen was allowed to hunt, and so he, in Wisconsin, you have to get whatever you have to get to go hunt the different seasons, and so for those, and the gun that the state contends that he used to allegedly kill Teresa Halbach is not his gun. It was his landlord's gun, Rollie Johnson. Rollie owns the trailer and most of the furniture and everything that's in the trailer. And so that gun that was over the bed is actually Rollie's. And Rollie testified to that. Rollie testified that he used that gun all the time and shot at varmints around the salvage yard, so that there could be a ton of casings on the ground by Stephen's garage, that there was like some animal hole near the garage and they would shoot at that animal. So it's not even Stephen's gun, but that's not the rule. The rule is you can't have a gun. So yes, Stephen was going to do time regardless, because the gun was what they initially took him in custody for until they could make up new evidence to say he was responsible for Teresa Halbach. Cindy says, I'm asking because somewhere I heard that Jody was on probation. Why isn't she in trouble for the gun being in the trailer like Stephen? Well, you're right. Because I was going to say, she was ill when the Teresa Halbach thing happened, but she was living at that trailer in some point, and that gun's always just been in a gun rack that was over the bed. So both of them were felons and always in a house that had a gun in it. Debbie says, do you know what the situation is with Colborn's case against Netflix? I think it's hilarious. Hey, Mickey, knock it off. As far as I know, he's continuing the case and it hasn't been thrown out, which I can't believe. It's such a stupid case. You're guilty, dude. And they put in their facts. So, Nikki says, Andy Colborn is a shit show. He is right in the middle of this cover up. How is that guy still alive? And isn't he like a security guard at a hospital now? I mean, I know he was at one point, but I don't know if he still is. Vianne says, how come it says on Google he's wrongfully convicted, but he's still in jail? Well, because we say he's wrongfully convicted. The courts have not. Heather says, Kratz is back on Twitter, but his child bride is not. Ooh, interesting. Is he still talking shit? Or is he basically, well, he's always a nothing. Is he staying out of the Stephen Avery case? Kiko would like more lives. Yeah, so maybe I'll look at what I got going on next Wednesday. Anne says, has anyone went to Trump with this case to see about a pardon? Sorry, I'm seeing the next post. The president can't do anything because Stephen's case is at a state level, not federal. So there's nothing he can do in Stephen's case. And Heather says, eat steak. Eat steak is from the Marnie Yang case. And funny you say that, Heather, because I made that joke with Tammy on the phone today about eat steak. Well, Teresa, thank you for watching the Marnie episodes. Billy Joe says, how is Marnie doing with this coronavirus? Is she keeping safe? No, she's not, actually, Billy Joe. And Marnie is being heard from for the first time, actually, today. I have 2 of the tiny clips on Justice with Jax and WMP Justice Review that our local Fox News affiliate has an exclusive with Marnie that they talked to her via phone. And one of the things that was discussed is what is going on with her in prison. And so Marnie is 52, I think. And Marnie has this, and she has asthma. So she is in the high risk. And she also is somebody that has had throughout her lifetime mono, which attacks your immune system. So she's at a high risk that if she was to get this virus, she will die. So there were 2 small clips on their 5 o'clock and 5:30 news tonight here in Chicagoland. And then they're going to have a full 8-minute interview with her at 9 p.m. Central Time tonight. And I'll be recording that and posting that as well. But I'm not posting that on Stephen Avery. Find it in Justice with Jax or the WMP Justice Review page. We're still working as hard as we can to get Marnie out. You know, not only is she innocent, her life is in jeopardy at this time. Okay, people responding in federal cases. Shannon says Zellner is an angel on earth. Yeah. Just watching her at work when you see in Dream Killer, in Blaming Melissa, in Fight for Melissa, and then Making a Murderer. And if you read into any of her other cases, which I already posted the link to her website, but all of her cases on there, you know, so you can read up on the other cases that she handled. Yeah, so she's phenomenal. Heather says, how is Melissa's dad holding up without being able to visit her? It was really hard, especially when they kept phone privileges away. Melissa now gets to talk to parents. And so in the emails I get from Melissa too, that's done wonders for her just to be able to hear her mom and dad's voice. And her dad is high risk. He needs to keep himself in the house. Paul, if you're watching this at any point and I find out you've gone out, you're in trouble, he needs to stay home. But at least they can talk on the phone. So they talk on the phone at least twice a week. So that's good. Vanessa, hi from Tasmania, Australia. Teresa says, but why is he still in jail? Teresa, are you asking why is Steven still in jail? Steve is still in jail because his conviction is now overturned. We say he's wrongfully convicted, but law has not. That's why he remains. Tom says, Carrie says, I found Ryan's post and banned him. Is he still here? Carrie is one of our moderators here. Thank you so much, Carrie. I haven't seen a single Ryan post, so I don't know, but Carrie's on the job. So, but Tom was saying maybe he has me blocked. I'm a admin, so even if you block me, it just is like grayed and I can still see it, allegedly. You never know. Stuff is a little weird. Miley will plant anything. Yep, that's what it says. Sherry says, I thought Brendan was supposed to be released. He's still in prison? Oh, yeah. Yeah, Brendan's conviction was overturned at one point. That's why Brendan, since then, has signed his letters, the complete and didn't, because now he was deemed innocent, but still kept in prison. And then the state took it to the 7th Circuit. And the 7th Circuit still agreed with overturning it, but it was, you only have 3 of the 7 judges at that one. So then what you do is you call for an en banc, which is then 5 of them or whatever. Again, numbers, I don't do numbers. And then that one said, no, he's guilty. So that's why Brendan is still in prison, stealing his life away. Dion says, what is the current status with Stephen's case, please? Dion, nothing. We're waiting for a response to Kathleen's appellate brief that was filed on October 14th, 2019, right? Is that what we're waiting for? But it's pushed back until the end of May. So there's nothing report on Stephen's case. And I know we'll get on Stephen Avery projects on the page of, come on, there's nothing here, because there's nothing to tell y'all. And we've had that a lot in Stephen's case, because he's been in prison how many years? So there's long stretches of time that nothing is happening and there's nothing to report. But we went live today because there's so many new people that are watching it. So figured give the opportunity for new people to discuss the case. Yes, Doug. I know. Paul says Brendan got led down their path and bullied into his interrogation. Yeah, it's a classic case of coercion. Katya says, I thought about the book Brendan talked about where he read the story about Chained in Bed. Yeah, that's Kiss the Girls. I didn't hear anything about it in the series. No one looked it up to see if it was the story he talked about. If he read it and got stressed about it, that would surely explain his behavior that his female cousin was talking about. The silent crying and sitting alone. It must be a traumatic thing to read if we're disabled. I could see that, Katya, but his cousin has admitted she lied about that. So, yeah. Kayla just flat out lied. We're past where I said I was going to get off here. I'm trying to get through comments. So I'll extend it until 7:30. Bianca says, what they did to Brendan was a complete mindfuck and absolutely disgusting. They basically planted the words in his mouth. Poor boy. Kelly agrees. That was so wrong. Carrie says, hi from the Lake District, England. 2 wrongful convictions for Stephen. He's looking at payout if they ever let his case go back to trial. Probably why they won't allow another trial. Continuous pressure on the courts. Don't let people forget. The whole case is pure shade. Revolves around money. Teresa says, what happened to you and the family? Well, a lot of Stephen's family are shady and don't want anything to do with them and their money-making schemes. Mindy says, your time just with us, much appreciated. Well, thank you for being here, Mindy. Dominic says, great info, really appreciate this. Well, thank you for being here, Dominic. Deanne says, this is such a tragic story, left me heartbroken for them both. It's a horrible, horrible tragedy. It really, really is. Nikki says he should have still got the compensation payout for the first wrongful conviction, regardless of the situation now. He agreed to a settlement. That's what happened with that. Because he had to. He needed to get some kind of lawyers. So he was screwed over again. So many different ways that Stephen's been screwed over, that he should have been compensated for that first wrongful conviction and not just 400 and something thousand. Dominic says, Lenk is another one. Him and Colburn are such a joke of a double act. Remarkable that they thought it was okay to consistently interject themselves into the Halbach case, despite supposedly being told to back off. And then, remarkably, when the one person who seemed neutral in the coroner was told to back off by her own department. That was one of the worst things in the second season of Making a Murderer that really got to me, was what was done to the coroner. I feel so bad for that coroner. Another person I would love to talk to. Heather says, yes, he's still saying making a murderer ruined his reputation. He ruined his own reputation. Bianca says, why can't Trump pardon both Brendan and Stephen? I heard he's looking into Joe Exotic's case, which is a ridiculously stupid case in my opinion. LOL. I think Stephen's case are way more of importance. Tiger King Joe Exotic is in federal prison. So therefore it's a federal case. And so Trump can do something about that. He can't do anything when something's at a state level. It's just the way the system works. Bridget says, I find it odd they did not want the medical examiner to do her job and basically force her to quit because of how she felt working, especially nights. Oh, we have 9 minutes. Do I go down that rabbit hole with y'all? There's another case. I'm going to try and give the little Cliff's Notes version of it. Another case in Manitowoc. A young man, died. Possibly a Manitowoc sheriff ran him over. And when the coroner reported to that crime scene, she was told, make sure her report says the already dead when the cop ran him over. And her response was, if that's what the evidence shows, that's what my report will reflect. Clearly, she's not gonna just follow that blue line and do as told. So when this case happens, they know she's not gonna play ball with how they doctor evidence there. So therefore, they can't let her on the property. That's what happened to her. Dominic says, I'm overjoyed Colburn is trying to sue Netflix. Hopefully he will really shoot himself in the foot when the lawyers can show quite how, if anything, making a murderer underplayed how corrupt he was. Yeah. Just what a stupid lawsuit. Tony says, hi, how are you? Doing well. Hope you are too. Brian says, why was Bobby's statement about showering before going hunting not investigated? You don't shower before going hunting, especially low. The animals would smell you, especially with how close you would have to be. Now, I don't know anything about hunting, and I've talked about that before too, or asked about that. And some people have said, because his shower was like really, really fast, right? So you may shower where you're just rinsing off in water and not using soap and just trying to rinse your smell off you so the deer or whatever he was going to kill, if it wasn't human, wouldn't smell him. But Brian, the reason be looked into further is because they don't care. They were never trying to find what happened to Teresa Halbach. They were trying to make sure Stephen was found guilty for it. So anything else doesn't matter. It says, why does it take so long for all these trials? Because our system sucks. Mindy says, the system is so corrupt. It is really sad. They all stick together and kiss each other's arse. Lorenzo says, freedom for Stephen and Chico Forti. I don't know Chico. Shannon says, there were so many family members that went against each other. It's hard to keep track of when they liked each other, when they hated each other, when this one talked against them, when that one did. And it got quite ugly. Ian says, thanks, Jax. Nice to see you talking about Steve. If you could only talk with him, he would realize you've not done anything bad to him. You will both sort it out eventually. Well, And I appreciate that, Ian. Um, support Steven's innocence. He does not have to like me or be my friend or pen pal or anything like that for me to believe in his innocence. That's all that matters to me. I want Stephen and Brendan freed. I want their convictions overturned, and I want them to be bazillionaires and ride off into the sunset and live out the rest of their lives however they want. You know, Gary says, hi from Belfast, Northern Ireland. Watch Making a Murderer. Stephen and Brendan are 100% innocent. That place hell would never happen in my country. Yeah, this is a great country, don't get me wrong. I love my country, but we got a lot broke here. Jen says, this should have never happened. If it so-called happened in the bedroom, wouldn't there be evidence everywhere? All because they were being sued. Yeah. Hair. My hair's tightly wound right now, but I shed like crazy. There's no Teresa hair there. And don't tell me, oh, he cleaned it all up. Shit. Stephen is not the cleanliness of people. And they looked at his human mop and all, they looked at all that stuff. There is no, everywhere I go, I'm leaving DNA. My hair's falling out like crazy everywhere. There is no hair. That trailer is tiny. They're raping her. You're not finding any semen. You're not finding any pubic hairs. You're not, and then you're stabbing her and then you're pulling her out of there. No blood anywhere. Not a drop anywhere. Nope. Not possible. Miley says Carol fucking Baskins did it. Carol fucking Baskin. Katia says lied about him telling he killed Lisa, but the book might be linked to his confession because he read it. It came relatively easy to his mind, and therefore the police thought it was self-experienced. Yeah. I never did I read Kiss the Girls? Because I've read several of that author's books, and I don't remember if I read Kiss the Girls, but I know I've seen the movie. And I don't know how different the book and the movie is. Dominic says, oh my God, this coroner really sounds like the kind of ethical person this case needed. Poor lady. Thank you for that story. Well, Dominic, and that's what you want in a coroner. The coroner is supposed to be fighting for the victim. That's their job. What happened to this person? Not to tell made up stories. Put her in the garage or trailer. So the coroner in the Melissa Kaluzinski case, another one of Kathleen's cases and one that I advocate for, that coroner spoke the truth and they went after him as well. And he is no longer a coroner and was prosecuted. And I went to, and it was now, and we haven't heard, filed for clemency. He's not in prison, but he cannot run to be coroner ever again as long as that's on his record. So he needs the clemency so it can be wiped off his record and he can run for coroner again. But you stand up against corruption and they come after you. That's what happened to the coroner of Manitowoc, and that's what happened to the coroner of Lake County, Illinois. Lorenzo says, Chico 40 is an Italian man in jail in U.S. Same story of Stephen. You can watch his story on CNN. Well, thank you for letting us know, Lorenzo. I'm sure people will definitely look into that because, there's lots of people that want to know other cases of injustice. And Lorenzo, we've got, if you're not in the MAM gossip group, that's where we share other cases. So if you click to join MAM gossip, you are free to share anything you would like about that story in MAM gossip. Michelle says, can people write to Stephen and Brendan for moral support? Yes, you can. And when you're on the Stephen Avery Project page, There'll be something that's at the top of the page. It's marked like an announcement. It's pinned to the top of the page. The addresses to write to both Stephen and Brendan are pinned in there. So there might be several announcements. So you click on the announcements and it'll open things that have been saved up there on how to donate to their commissaries, how to reach Kathleen Zellner. All that stuff is right there. So please do write to Stephen and Brendan. But as I said earlier, you won't necessarily get a response. Ian says that shows you only have their best interests at heart, as we all know. Well, thank you. Stephanie says, I shed too. This is crap. Set them free. Corby says, is this nightmare ever going to end? I hope so, knock on wood. Teresa says, sorry, who is the guy trying to sue making a murderer? That would be Colborn, because he says it was ruining his reputation by making it look like he called in the plates and blah, 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 all that stuff. Gemma says, it's all very odd. I am a bit at a loss to how it got this far. Yeah, because of corruption. And Gemma feels so bad for them. Teresa says, paid off. Lorenzo will post an MAM gossip. Katya says, thanks for taking your time answering our questions. I'm happy to. And I'm at the bottom too. I don't know all the answers, but if I can answer, I will do to the best of my ability. Nikki, and this is the last comment or question, also messed up. How is there not an independent inquiry happening into all of this blatant corruption? It's unbelievable. I know. So we've come to the end of my extended 1 hour. We actually went an hour and a half. Sorry for those that I didn't get to your questions. I'll look at my schedule and see if I'm open Wednesday next week. And we'll live and talk about Stephen's case there. If you are interested in any other cases, you can either go to our closed group, MAM Gossip, which we go into more of Stephen's case there. That's where we have a lot of the real people that investigate and rip apart this case, like Carol Ann Fitzgerald, who has done a lot of good things with this case. She's in there posting, and we post about other cases. And then I have my Justice with Jax, where I cover all the different cases that I advocate for. If you're interested in any of those, then there's Monday and Friday at 6 p.m. Central Time, the same time I went live here. We are live on the WMP Justice Review Facebook page talking about the Marnie Yang case. And Carrie says, couldn't the federal government look into your state police system? Seems to be full of corruption. It's that blue line. Nobody wants to overturn anybody else. It's very hard to do. So, keep the Stephen and Brendan and all in your thoughts during this pandemic. I hope you all stay safe. Angela says, took a break from true crime, but I'm back and I've missed you. Well, welcome back, Angela. If there's ever anything on Stephen's case, it will get posted on Stephen Avery Project right away. Lorenzo says it's a Facebook group. Yeah, everything I've talked about tonight are all Facebook groups. So there's MAM, that stands for Making a Murderer, MAM Gossip. That's our closed group that we talk about Stephen's case and other cases. And then Justice with Jax is where I'll post about my cases. And then as well as WMP, which stands for Words Matter Publishing, Justice Review, where we go in depth into the Marnie Yang case. So, all right, I'm out for the evening. Safe. Wash your hands, Katya. And Carrie posted the gossip link right there. Thank you so much, Carrie. And I am out of here. So, wash your hands. Until next time, investigation continues.